We will now request for the 3 refuge and the 5 precepts. You can follow me when we chant this request together. Okasa ahang Bhante tisaranena sading Pancasila Dhammang yacami anugahang katwa sila detame Bhante dutiyampi okasa ahang Bhante tisaranena sading Pancasila Dhammang yacami anugahang katwa silang detame Bhante tatiyampi okasa ahang Bhante tisaranena sading Pancasila Dhammang yacami anugahang katwa silang detame Bhante
Yamahang vadhamitang vaditang
ama Bhante
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa
Buddhang saranang gacchami
Buddhang saranang gacchami
Dhammang saranang gacchami
Dhammang saranang gacchami
Sanghang saranang gacchami
Sanghang saranang gacchami
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami
Saranagammanang Paripunang
Bhante
Panatipata Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami
Panatipata Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami
Adhinadana Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami
Adinadana Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami
Kamesu Miccacara Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami
Kamesu Miccacara Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami
Musawada Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami
Musawada Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami
Surameraya Majjapama Daṭṭhāna Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami
Surameraya Majjapama Daṭṭhāna Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami
Imani Panca Sikkhapadani Silena Sugating Yanti Silena Bhoga Sampada Silena Nibbhuting Yanti Tasmaha Silang Visodhaye
Amma Bhante Sadhu Sadhu Sadhu. Yeah. Next one, Bhante will lead us for a 15 minutes meditation. Bhante. Okay. I'll do the timer. Yeah.
So now let us for sometimes meditate, calming down our mind. You can prepare yourself while sitting on the floor, on the asana. You can sit cross-legged with the body straight and put your hands on the lap. Close your eyes. And before we focus our mind, our mindfulness toward object, and now we can use the breathing out and in as our object meditation. So make sure that the whole body in the state of relaxed as possible. After getting relaxed, and then we can start to bring our mindfulness to focus on breathing out and in by leading our minds around the nose. So we can feel it and we can see mindfully when the breathing out, and then be mindful there is a breathing out. When breathing in, we mindfully see the breathing in. That's that we can practice, we can develop our mindfulness until the meditation ends. Now we can start our meditation. Now we can end our meditation. Sabbi satta bhavantu sukhitata. May all beings be happy.
All right, Bhante. The time is now yours to start the sutta study. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. First, I would like to thanks especially to Buddhist Fellowship for inviting me to come here almost every year. I remember that last year on Saturday we have the meditation for the one day mindfulness. But for today we have the Dhamma discussion, especially to investigate one discourse, Mahanidana Sutta. And also I would like to thanks to Mr. Yogi, who becomes mediator, so that I come here to sharing the Dhamma. And actually, the first I got the topic about Mahanidana Sutta, at that time I didn't think twice. I just agree. But somehow later on, and then I find out, oh, this is a very profound sutta, very difficult discourse that we have to somehow understand. And actually not only that I have to examine or to discuss in English, but somehow, because the sutta itself is very, very profound, very deep. And this is about Paticca Samuppada, that is a dependent origination. And one of the sutta which is very important to understand dependent origination is this Mahanidana Sutta. So that's why it is not easy to actually understand, not easy to even explain what is the content of this discourse, but somehow it is also very important. And especially when we are talking about the teachings of the Buddha, actually this teaching, this dependent origination, can be said as the main teaching of him. And also this discourse, as we find in the Tigha Nikaya, also mentioning about that when the Bhante Ananda, the disciples of the Buddha, telling to the Buddha that this Paticca Samuppada is very clear to him, but somehow the Buddha reminded him not to say so, because dependent rising or Paticca Samuppada is truly very, very deep. So it is not easy to understand this teaching, this nature. So therefore, somehow we have to understand this. As I mentioned that the sutta is, we can say actually the discourse on Paticca Samuppada is the discourse which makes Buddhism so different, so unique than others, we can say other religion. And this is also as the main teachings of the Buddha, which is actually not being separated from the Four Noble Truths. So therefore it is very important. And as I mentioned that this discourse is found in Tigha Nikaya. So we know that Tigha Nikaya is the first Nikaya of Sutta Pitaka, and it consists of 34 discourses, being divided into 3 parts. The first is a Sila Kantavagga, and it has 13 discourses in Sila Kantavagga. And the second part is Mahavagga, and that is, it has 11 discourses. And the last one is Paticca. It has 10 discourses. And this Mahanidana Sutta is found in the second part of the discourse of the Tigha Nikaya. And this is also the second discourse of the Mahavagga. So that means among the 34 discourses, this Mahanidana is the 15 discourses of Tigha Nikaya. And very important to say that according to some other discourses, this Mahanidana Sutta is also belonging to very profound discourse, And because this discourse is also given by the Buddha among the Kurus, where the Buddha was accordingly living in the Kuru country, one of the country in the times of the Buddha. And at the time, he was together with his disciple, including Bhante Ananda, in the town named Kamasadama. So this is a kind of business town. So it is called Nigama in Pali term. So the Nigama is a kind of business town. So the market town. So he was the Buddha, and together with Bhante Ananda and other disciples, was living in the Kamasadama among the Kuru country. And according to some commentary literature, this discourse among the other discourses which are given by the Buddha considered to be very, very profound discourse. And the reason is because according to commentary, the Kuru people is quite different from other people. Especially accordingly, they have the very physical health, as well as they also have the matured mind. So because they have the matured mind, so therefore when the discourse, the profound discourse is given by the Buddha, so those people are easy to understand, quite different from others. They are easy to understand these discourses. And one of the discourses among these discourse found in Kamasadama is the Mahasatiparana Sutta. So not only just Mahanidāna, but also Mahasatiparana Sutta. Also the very important discourse, especially when we are practicing meditation, especially the Vipassana meditation, the insight meditation. There's Mahasatiparana Sutta was also given by the Buddha in this Kuru people, in the Kamasadama, the market town of Kuru, Kamasadama. And this also the same, Mahanidana Sutta is given by him, by the Buddha, in this Kuru people in Kamasadama. And at the time actually, not only just Bhante Ananda, because when we see like, the content, it seems like it is about the Bhante Ananda and the Buddha, the conversation between Bhante Ananda and the Buddha, but somehow those who actually listen to the teachings are not only just Bhante Ananda, but some other monks also listening to this teaching. And even according to commentary literature, like Mahasatiparana, those who are listening to the teaching like this Mahanidāna, Mahasatiparana, are not only just bhikkhuni, not only just bhikkhu, but also bhikkhuni, and even upasaka and upasika. So many people get together there and listening to the teaching of the Buddha, and including about this Mahanidāna, the discourse on causality or causation. So therefore, this discourse is very important because those who are listening are the Kuru people that I mentioned. The Kuru peoples are very different from others. Kuru peoples are very mature in the mind. And therefore, this discourse is also easy to understand by them. But somehow, here the Buddha mentioned about this Paticca Samuppada to be very deep. So, the discourse begins with the statement of Bhante Ananda, Venerable Ananda. So, he mentioned in front of the Buddha, "It is wonderful and marvelous, Venerable Sir, how this dependent arising or dependent co-origination is so deep and appears so deep, yet to myself it seems as clear can be." So this Bhante Ananda telling the Buddha that dependent arisings or dependent co-origination or Paticca Samuppada, which is actually so deep for others, and not only just the meaning is very deep, but even the appearance is also very deep, but somehow to him it is very clear. It seemed to be very clear, very plain. So therefore, he said to the Buddha, "It's so," and the Buddha replied what the statement of Bhante Ananda not to say so, because this dependent arising is very deep, and it appears very deep. And because of not understanding and not penetrating this Dhamma, this nature, this dependent origination, this generation has become like a tangled skin, like a knotted ball of thread, like a matted rushes and reeds, and does not pass beyond samsara, or wandering life, the cycles of life, with its plane of misery, unfortunate destination, and lower realm. So this is what the Buddha said to Bhante Ananda, not to say that Paticcasamuppada is, for him, is not deep, but somehow this Paticcasamuppada is very deep, and it appears very deep. And now the question is, why this Bhante Ananda told to the Buddha that he was very easy to understand, Paticcasamuppada. And what is also the reason why the Buddha reminded him not to say so? And this is what actually given an explanation and detailed explanation in the commentary literature, or in the Atthakatha, the commentary on this on this Mahanidana Sutta. So there, according to the commentary literature, Bhante Ananda was actually just meditating, and then he was contemplating Paticcasamuppada in many ways, because when we contemplate the Paticcasamuppada, it is stated that we have to contemplate in, in the forward order, the order in forward, and also the reverse order, and we also have to contemplate like the what we call as the anuloma, patiloma, how the suffering arising and how the suffering ceasing. Just like, for example, we contemplate in order, the forward order, avijja, paccaya, sankhara. And due to the avijja, the ignorant as condition, there arises sankhara, the mental formation. Sankhara, paccaya, vijnana. Due to this sankhara, the mental formation, there arises vijnana, the consciousness, and so on. This is the forward order. But when it is stated as a reverse order, it is like that, what is the reason why this aging and old age rises? The reason is because of the birth, the jati. And what is the reason why this jati rises? The cause or the reason why the jati or the birth rises because of the bhava, becoming, and so on. From the end to the first, the beginning, that is a reverse order. And somehow we also have to contemplate, like, for example, in the forward order in the sense of anuloma, that is that just now I mentioned about avijja, paccaya, sankhara, sankhara, paccaya, vijnana, and so on. But somehow we also have to understand in the forward order, but it is a kind of contrary. While the first is mentioning about how the suffering arises, but the second one is how we have to understand the suffering ceases. Where the factors of the Paticcasamuppada being disappeared, and then the suffering also disappears. For example, the very first statement, and many discourses mentioning, is that avijjayatveva asesa viraga nirodha, sankhara nirodho. Because of the total and complete cessation of this avijja, ignorance, so there the sankhara or the mental formation also ceases, and so on. So with the cessation of these very factors, there are 12 factors, so the whole mass of suffering also ceases. So this is how it is called as patiloma. That means we have to understand how the suffering ceases due to the cessation of these factors. And Bhante Ananda was contemplating in many ways about this Paticcasamuppada, and for him, this dependent origination seems to be very clear, seems to be very plain. And therefore, when some other people say that Paticcasamuppada is so deep and appears so deep, but somehow for Bhante Ananda it is very clear. So therefore he went to the Buddha, paid homage, and said to the Buddha in such statement. And the Buddha reminded him not to say so, because this dependent arising, Paticca-samuppada, is very deep. And what is the reason why this Bhante Ananda can see Paticca-samuppada to be very clear? So the commentary literature also mentioning about the reason, because there are 4 reasons accordingly. So Bhante Ananda was quite different from others, and not only just with the ancient monk, but even like us, we cannot really understand the Paticca-samuppada like Bhante Ananda. And because this Bhante Ananda, the first reason why you can see this Paticca-samuppada is because he has already trained himself for a very long time. Accordingly, from the very first time he was meeting a certain Buddha, the name is the Pusa Buddha, the Buddha Pusa. A long time ago, he was meeting him, and actually he was the youngest brother of Bhante Buddha, or Buddha Pusa, and he was seeing a personal attendance of Pusa Buddha. And then he thought himself that he would be like him, to be like the personal attendance of Buddha. So therefore he came to the Buddha Pusa and told him whether I'm able in the future to be a personal attendance of the Buddha. And the Buddha Pusa told him that in the future he will be the personal attendance of certain Buddha named Gautama Buddha. And from that time onward, he was training himself in the teaching. He accumulated a lot of meritorious deeds and practicing the teaching, practicing the Dhamma for many, we can say many lives, and even accordingly for 100,000 eons, 100,000 kalpa, practicing in such a way in accordance to the Dhamma. So therefore, in the very present time, he became a personal attendant of the Buddha, and he was able to understand well Paticca-samuppada. So already practicing for a very long time. And this is the first one. And the second one, because this Bhante Ananda was also a very diligent monk, very diligent in study. He liked to listen to the teaching. Not only just listening to the teachings of the Buddha, but also many other senior monks. He was very humble. He was listening to the discourses, to the teaching, to the admonishment of other senior monks. Like for example, sometimes we find that this Bhante Ananda was following the Bhante Sariputta, and then listening to his teaching, to his advisors, and sometimes also he went together with Bhante Mahamoggallana, and sometimes also we can find Bhante Ananda was also together with Bhante Mahakassapa. Many other senior monks whom these Bhante Ananda liked to listen, even learning from them. And because he was very diligent, very studious person, studying the teaching of the Buddha, so therefore for him this Paticca-samuppada was very clear. It is easy to understand for him, but not for others. And this is the second one, according to commentary literature. And the third one, this Bhante Ananda was also at that time already attaining Sotapanna, the stream enterer, the stream winner. And we understand that the person who really understand this Paticca-samuppada, even not complete understanding, but somehow already, more understand than others, is the person who attain at least Sotapanna. Because that Sotapanna is accordingly understanding or having the direct knowledge with regard to yang kinci samudaya dhammang sabbantang nirodha dhammang. So that Sotapanna understand not only just theory but with the direct knowledge. So whatever things rises due to causes, all those things ceases, subject to cessation. Sabbantang nirodha dhammang. So these are the direct knowledge of Sotapanna. So this is also the understanding of the Paticca-samuppada. And because this Bhante Ananda was already attaining Sotapanna, so therefore for him Paticca-samuppada is very clear. And this is the third reason. according to commentarial literature or Atthakatha. And the fourth reason, Bhante Ananda was a very learned monk, very learned. And he was actually the person who considered by the Buddha even before he attained arahantship, but by the Buddha is being placed as a monk who is so very learned among the other monks. It is called as Bahu Sutta. Already listened much about the teaching, very learned monk. The reason is that because Bhante Ananda was having an ability to remember all the discourses word by word given by the Buddha and other disciples. So when the Buddha, for example, giving the discourses and the Bhante Ananda listening to the discourses, the only person who can remember word by word is the Bhante Ananda, not others. Perhaps like we listen to the teaching and then we just can understand as a general what the Bhante, what others actually given. But some of Bhante Ananda could remember word by word, whatever the teaching given to him. So therefore, if we come back to the story of the first Buddhist council, the 3 months after the Buddha's passing away, there is a gathering among the bhikkhus, among the monks. There are 500 monks who actually chosen by Bhante Mahakassapa as the president of First Buddhist Council. At that time, Bhante Ananda was one of those 500 monks chosen by the Bhante Mahakassapa. But at that time, before the council was going on, Bhante Ananda was actually just Sotapanna, not attaining arahantship yet, still Sotapanna. But the problem is that without Bhante Ananda, that council will not happen. Because no one understands the teaching word by word except Bhante Ananda. So without Bhante Ananda, the council will not happen. But somehow, if Bhante Ananda not attain arahantship, that also will be the criticism from others. Because there are some others who actually already attained arahantship but not joining in the council. But somehow Bhante Ananda being Sotapanna but chosen to be a member of the council, the Sanghayana. So therefore, during 3 months, Bhante Ananda was working hard to attain arahantship. And in the night before tomorrow, the council was started. The whole night, Bhante Ananda was practicing meditation. But somehow, almost until morning, he didn't attain arahantship. Only after feeling like tired, and then he wanted to lay down to refresh his body. But somehow, in that very moment, when the head not yet touched the pillow, but the leg already, not on the floor, and he attained arahantship. And there were these 500 monks, all arahant, but somehow earlier Bhante Ananda was still Sotapanna, but being chosen by Bhante Mahakassapa to join this Mahasangiti, or the gathering, the great gathering, to collect all the teachings of the Buddha, to classify it, and we can understand there are three Pitaka, and that is actually collected in the first Buddhist council. And Bhante Ananda was actually one of the chosen monk, and he was actually, we can say, the key why this Sangiti could happen. Otherwise, that Sangiti, or the gathering, the great gathering, the council, the Buddhist council, will not happen without Bhante Ananda. And because of this, Bhante Ananda was a very learned monk, very learned person, understanding well the teachings of the Buddha, could remember everything what the Buddha said, word by word. So therefore, for him, this Paticca Samuppada was very clear, was very plain. So this is what it is mentioned in commentarial literature. But we also have to understand for others, of course, Paṭiccsamuppada is very deep for others. So therefore, in commentary literature also mentions about some other similes. Why? For Bhante Ananda was very clear, but for others are very, very deep to understand this. It is difficult to comprehend this Paṭiccsamuppada. And it is just like, suppose there is the trained wrestler who already trained for many months, lifting up the stone and so on, very hard working, very hard training. And one day, when he is going for fighting, going to the fighting arena, and then he find out the stone which is actually used by the wrestler to train. And then he asks others, can you lift that stone to me? And the others said, oh, it is very, very heavy. I cannot lifting up the stone. And then he just go forward there, and then he just take 2 stones, very easy, and throwing very easy. So likewise, for Bhante Ananda, it's just like the wrestler who already trained, while the others not understanding the Paṭiccsamuppada because not training in accordance to the Dhamma. For Bhante Ananda already trained himself for very long time, as I mentioned, 100,000 years, in order to understand Paṭiccsamuppada. But for others, it is very difficult to understand Paṭiccsamuppada because not training, not, having kind of the long training about this. So therefore, it is quite different from Bhante Ananda. And also, there is another simile, but this is according to a kind of legend. So according to the legend, or we can say in the literature, in the ocean, there is one very huge fish. The name is Thimi Pingala. The fish Thimi Pingala. It is mentioned not only just in the commentary literature, but also in some other discourses, that this fish so big until the length of the fish is 300 yojana. So you know that 1 yojana is like 1.6 kilometer. 1.6 kilometer. So you can count how length 300 yojana for the fish. And for this fish, the so-called ocean is not really deep. Even just to cover the whole body, it is difficult for that fish. It has to, she has to find a very deep water, very deep ocean water, so that he could just cover all the body. But somehow for other fish, the so-called ocean is very deep. So likewise, for Bhante Ananda, the Paṭiccsamuppada is just like, the Thimi Pingala. Very, we can say it is very clear for him. But for other fish, this Paṭiccsamuppada is like ocean, so deep, so huge, so large, difficult to understand. So this is also what it is mentioned in commentary literature. And also there is one simile, another simile. According to the legend, there is we can say non-human beings. The name is Rahu. Rahu is actually the Yaka. You know the Yaka? Yaka is one of the deity belonging to Chatu Marajika, and one of the Yaka is Rahu. And that according to the literature, not only just in Buddhist literature, but even in Hindu literature, that Rahu has a very big, huge body. And even when he went to the ocean, the water in the ocean, which is very deep, but for him, only just cover until his knee. According to the story, according to the literature, just cover only until his knee. So for him, this ocean is not so deep for him. But for other beings like us, the so-called ocean is very deep. So likewise, for Bhante Ananda, Paṭiccsamuppada is very clear. But for other people, Paticca Samuppada, dependent co-arising, dependent co-origination, is very, very deep, difficult to understand. So this is why this Bhante Ananda was going to the Buddha and telling about how this Paticca Samuppada seems to be very clear to him. But then the Buddha said about that you should not say so, don't say so, because this dependent arising is very deep, appears very deep. And according to commentary literature, actually the Buddha told this statement because of two things. The first thing, he wants to praise Bhante Ananda, praising Bhante Ananda. Why? As I mentioned before that, this Paticca Samuppada is very deep, but you have a very knowledgeable, you have the very great knowledge, you have the very lucid wisdom. So therefore, this Paticca Samuppada is clear for you. So this is how the Buddha say to Ananda not to say so, because this Paticca Samuppada is very deep. But for you, it is clear. This is just to praise Bhante Ananda. But somehow, the Buddha also refraining him not to say so, because really this Paticca Samuppada is still very deep. Even though for you it is a very clear than others, than other people, but somehow this Paticca Samuppada still very deep. And according to some other discourses as well as commentary literature, Paticca Samuppada is also considered to be Buddha Visaya. You know what is the meaning Buddha Visaya? The reigns of the domains of the Buddha. The only person who really completely understand, have the complete understanding on Paticca Samuppada is the Buddha. For others, of course, understand, but not so complete, not so perfect like the Buddha. So, the real completeness of understanding of this Paticca Samuppada is only for the Buddha, not for others. So, therefore, this Paticca Samuppada is Buddha Visaya, the domain of the Buddha. Only the Buddha can understand very, very complete, very, very perfect. So therefore, this should be reminded by him, by the Buddha, to Ananda, not to say that Paticca Samuppada is very clear. And therefore, in the commentary literature, also stated accordingly that the Buddha said, if you really understand Paticca Samuppada very clear, why you are still Sotapanna? Right? And then again, why you are not now attaining Sakadagami? By weakening Patiga and Kamaraga. And why you are not attaining Anagami? By destroying the 5 fetters. And why you don't attain Arahantship? By destroying the whole fetters. And why you don't attain Pacceka Buddha? And why you don't attain Sammasambuddha? If you feel like that Paticca Samuppada is very clear to you. So this is what it is mentioned in Adhakata commentary literature. Because this Paticca Samuppada is the domains of Sammasambuddha. Of course, Sotapanna understand. Sakadagami more understand more, right? Anagami understand more than Sakadagami. Arahant, like the Savaka Buddha, also understand more than Anagami. But somehow, Pacceka Buddha understand more than Arahantship. And again, Sammasambuddha is the person who really perfectly understand this Paticca Samuppada. So the depthness of Paticca Samuppada is due to the 4 reasons. This is also the commentary literature. The first is because the depthness with regard to the meaning, the meanings of each and every phenomenon, especially the reason, for example, like this, according to literature like this. What is the reason why this age and the old age and the death originated from the birth. What is the reason? Understanding the reason, it is the depthness of the meaning. Or we can say, we can use another example. What is the reason why the birth originated from the becoming, or from the bhava? Understanding well the reason why this bhava become the origination for the risings of birth, it is the atha, that is the meaning, the depthness of the meaning. This is the first. The second one is the depthness of the Dhamma, the profundity of the Dhamma. What is the Dhamma? That phenomenon itself. What is the meaning of avidya? What is the meaning of sankhara? What is the meaning of vijnana? So understanding the meaning well, this is also the depthness, the profundity of that Dhamma, the phenomenon. So here the Dhamma is not referring to the teaching, but it is referring to the phenomenon, the phenomenons of avidya, sankhara, vijnana, and so on. And this is also very profound. And the third one is the depthness with regard to the teaching. It is called desana gambira. So the gambira means the depthness. Desana is the teaching. The depthness or the profundity of the teaching. Also it is, what is the meaning of this? When we come to many discourses of the Buddha mentions about paticca samuppada in many ways. As I mentioned, sometimes the Buddha will teach paticca samuppada in forward order. Avidya, paccaya, sankhara, and so on. But somehow, the Buddha also just now in Mahanidana Sutta, the Buddha preaching this paticca samuppada in reverse order, from the end to the beginning. But somehow, sometime, from the beginning to the end. And sometimes the Buddha also preaching this paticca samuppada from the middle to the end, or from the middle to the beginning. In many ways, the Buddha had preached this paticca samuppada, and that is also because of the profundity of the teaching, and not easy to understand. And sometimes even the Buddha just given this paticca samuppada in very short statement. For example, he said, "Yo paticca samupadang pasati, so dhammang pasati. Yo dhammang pasati, so paticca samupadang pasati." One who sees paticca samuppada, dependent origination, he sees the Dhamma. And one who sees the Dhamma sees the paticca samuppada. So this statement, very short, but somehow it is also the way how the Buddha teach this paticca samuppada, and not easy to understand. And because of the depthness, the profundity of the teaching, so this paticca samuppada considered to be profound, considered to be deep. This is the third one. The fourth one is because of Pati Veda, and it is the most difficult. Pati Veda Gambira, the depthness of penetration, the profundity of penetrating this paticca samuppada, especially according to commentary literature, how it is difficult to penetrate the svabhava, the sabhava, the own nature of each and every phenomenon, to understand what is the own nature of avidya. That avidya is the non-understanding, for example. Avidya is the non-understanding of the Four Noble Truths. What is the own nature of this sankhara? Sankhara is the accumulating. Sankhara is conditioning. Sankhara is actually the karma, the action. Sankhara is actually the lastness. And then also sankhara is actually lastfulness, according to commentary literature. What is the own nature of vijnana, or consciousness? Vijnana is the devoid of agent, devoid of self, and so on. So understanding the own nature of each and every phenomenon, it is about the penetration of Paticca Samuppada. And because it is very profound, very deep, difficult to penetrate, difficult to understand with regard to Sabhava, the own nature of each and every phenomenon, so it is considered to be profound. Paticca Samuppada is very profound, not easy to understand. But somehow, now we try to understand. This is the four reason. So therefore, because of this reason, again, the Buddha said to Bhante Ananda not to say so, because this dependent arising is deep and it appears deep. And because of not understanding and not penetrating this Dhamma, so this generation has become like a tangled skin. So what is the meaning not understanding and not penetrating? So not understanding here in the Pali language is Ananubodha. Yeah, I will see first. I don't know why we cannot use this laptop. Because if we can use this laptop, it will be very nice, because sometimes I can use the Pali one and some other time use the translation. So here, the Buddha said about etasa ananda dhammasa ananubodha appadiveda. So because of Ananda, by not understanding this Dhamma, dhammasa ananubodha, by not understanding this Dhamma, and also dhammasa appadiveda, by not penetrating this Dhamma, evamayang paja, this generation, and so on. So what is the meaning of Ananubodha and Appadiveda? And this is also very important. The meanings of Ananubodha, not fully understanding, is referring to the Ñatha Pariñña. So there is the term Ñatha Pariñña. So the Pariñña is a full understanding from the prefix pari. Pari means kind of full. And then ñata is understanding, full understanding. Means pariñña. Pari and ña is understanding, the full understanding, the fully understanding. The fully understanding of the known ñata, that should be known. The meaning is that because of not understanding, not fully understanding each and every phenomenon of this Paticca Samuppada, this is the first. So this Ñatha Pariñña or Ananubodha, the not understanding, is in order to understand this phenomena is not just mere first interpretation. We understand what is avijja, and then we listen, perhaps from other monks, that avijja is the non-understanding of the Four Noble Truths. Not just like that, but we have to contemplate again and again. We have to repeat this understanding again and again until we have a kind of agreement within our mind that this avijja is truly the non-understanding of the Four Noble Truths. We have to understand that. And for example, now like we will discuss about, for example, Sankara. What is Sankara? Even the Sankara was translated as mental formation or formation, but somehow Sankara is also actually referring to 29 of Citta, according to Abhidhamma. 29 of Citta. 29 kinds of consciousness, especially the consciousness producing the effect, producing the vipaka, the fruits. There are 29. So we have to contemplate again and again. We have to see again and again, repeatedly contemplate within our mind. Only then we can have a kind of agreement that, oh yeah, this is right, this is true, that Sankara is actually 29 kinds of citta. Sankara is actually the action. Sankara is actually the karma, the action,
which brings about the effect. So repeatedly contemplating, it is called ñata parinya, the full understanding with regard to the known. That is, that each and every phenomenon of this Paticca Samuppada should be known, should be understood well. Of course, this is still theory, but somehow it comes to the agreement within our mind, and it is very important. Just like, you know, when we are understanding the teaching of the Buddha, there are 3 steps. The first is pariyati. You see pariyati? So we have to learn the teaching theoretically. And the second patipati, and we have to practice. We have to develop within our life, within our mind. And only then we penetrate. We can have, you know, the benefits by our experience, direct experience about what we are practicing. So pariyati, patipati, pativeda. Ñata parinya is actually the full understanding by pariyati. So we have to repeatedly contemplate within our mind to have a kind of agreement that this is true, this is right, that avidya is the non-understanding of the Four Noble Truth, for example, like that. But again, the second one is apativeda. The because of not penetrating of this dhamma, of this nature, of this paticca samuppada. So what is the non-penetration? So that means we have to penetrate. So the meaning of penetration here are 2, the 2 kinds. The first is tirana parinya, and the second one is a pahana parinya. The full understanding of kind of tirana, scrutinization, understanding by means of practicing, by means of, you know, for example, we have to see each and every phenomenon by means of practicing within our mind that this phenomenon is in the state of ever-changing, anicca. This phenomenon is actually belonging to dukkha, suffering, and this phenomenon is actually devoid of self. So by means of understanding that and to see within our mind, we have to feel it, we have to see it, and then we have to understand that this avidya is actually anicca, dukkha, anatta. And then this sankhara is anicca, dukkha, anatta. So this is what we call as tirana parinya. And this is also important things. And the third one is the pahana parinya, the full understanding by means of abandoning. Pahana. Pahana means abandoning. So abandoning here means that we have to abandon the defilements of mind. Not only just we understand this is anicca, dukkha, anatta, but somehow truly abandon the perception of, for example, the perception of nicca. Nicca means a kind of permanence. The permanence in there is a kind of the entity, a kind of phenomenon considered to be permanent. A kind of perception that is something permanent. So truly, such a person penetrating in such a way really abandon these perceptions of permanency. That is a penetration, the real penetration, and that is actually the real attempts of this teaching. So there are two kinds. So understanding by means of the known, the fully understanding of the known, that is kind of, we have to theoretically understand, we have to gain the knowledge, repeatedly contemplating what within our mind, but somehow we also have to start to see anicca, dukkha, anatta. And by means of this starting to see anicca, dukkha, anatta, one day there is an abandonment of the defilements of mind. There is abandonment of the perceptions of I, the perception of permanency, the perception of this is kind of the, sukha, or the happiness, that the world is full of happiness. So this is actually a kind of defilements of mind, and that should be abandoned. And that abandonment of these defilements of mind is what the commentary literature said as Pahana Parinya. So the full understanding by means of abandoning. So because of not understanding and not penetrating this nature, this Paticca Samuppada, so this generation has become like a tangled skein, like a knotted ball of thread, like a matted rushes and reeds. The meaning is that because of not understanding Paticca Samuppada, people, the beings, are not escaped from these cycles of birth and death. We are being kind of tangled in this samsara. We are like tangled skein. That means that when we see the skein of the weavers, and then being entangled here and there, and then we cannot see the beginning and the end. We cannot see how we actually coming into this world and how we end this samsaric life. We cannot see it. We cannot see the beginning. What is the beginning? We cannot see the avijja. We cannot see the kilesa. And we cannot see the end of this suffering life, these cycles of birth and death. Just like we cannot see the tangled skin, which one the beginning and which one the end, because already entangled. So likewise, because of not understanding this Paticca Samuppada, we are entangled in these cycles of life, in these cycles of birth and death, in this samsara. We cannot think of way of out. We cannot think about how to escape from this samsaric life. And I think most of people, most of beings in this world never think of how to escape from this samsaric life. I think only Buddhists, yeah? Because most of the teaching from the time of the Buddha, even before the time of the Buddha, even until now, most of the teaching just, talking about the samsaric life. If you die, you will be reborn either in hell or in heaven. That's it. But never think about the escape. That there is the escape from this samsaric life. There is the escape from these cycles of life. The escape from this hell and heaven. Never think of it. But only then the Buddha arises to the world and saying that even this heavenly world, a very nice world and very, living there for a very long time, but somehow those worlds are not permanent. Those heavenly world, even though very, full of happiness, but somehow it is impermanence. Sooner or later, after living there, such a people, such a being also will just die from there and again be reborn in somewhere else. But somehow, most of the teaching just talking about how we can get reborn after death, if not in the hell, in the heaven. That's it. But the Buddha said, because of not understanding this Paticca Samuppada, so people just like, like a tangled skein, like a knotted ball of thread, cannot go beyond this samsaric life. So the commentary literature mentioned about that because of not understanding this Paticca Samuppada, being always trapped in the cycles of life and trapped by means of various kinds of views, especially the 62 views that is mentioned in the Brahmajala Sutta. And those 62 views are actually regarding the two kinds of view. Sassata Ditti, the view on eternalism, and also Ujjeta Ditti, the view on cutting off. That means that there are some people who hold the view that after death, there is no any birth, there is no any life, there is no any continuation. The life is only just once now, not in the future. But some of the Buddha also refuse or reject this view because as long as we have this fuel, as long as we have the driving force, that is the kilesa, that is the developments of mind, we have to continue, not only in this life, but also continue to another life. But somehow the Buddha also mentioned that even there is a continuation of this life to the future, but somehow there is no any entity or any phenomenon which to be considered as self. There is no any self. There is no any kind of entity which is wandering from one birth to another birth. But there is the continuation, but no any self. So there was the sassata, the eternalism, and also ucceda, the cutting off, are not, we can say, rejected by the Buddha. So this is also mentioned in many discourses, also in commentary literatures, how people, because not understanding this paticca samuppada, just being trapped in many kinds of views, either ucceda vada or ucceda ditti or sassata ditti. And because of that, people do not pass beyond samsara, together with its planes of misery, that is apaya, unfortunate destination, to Gading and lower realms, atau we can say apaya. So this is why the Buddha mentions about the deepness, the profundity of paticca samuppada, because actually people don't understand this, and for very long time, like us, because we don't understand really paticca samuppada, so like us, we already, being trapped in this samsaric life, and does not go beyond the samsara, never think about the escape from this samsara, and now we start to think. Now we start to think, and this is the good thing. This is a good thing, because most of the people never think of how to escape from this samsaric life, and never even do not have any idea that there is something else. There is something else which is not sankata, which is not conditioned thing, but asangata. So I think this is a 9:30 according to schedule. At 9:30 there will be the question and answer, perhaps, before we continue.
Any questions? We have time. I think we have about an hour for the Q&A. Or Bhante can go on and on and on again. Any question at this point of time? Diga, you have questions? Sorry, Yikun, you have questions.
Hi Bhante, thanks for your teaching. I think, so I just went through a dependent origination retreat also, and I felt that the thing is, we know dependent origination, we can read through the trial cycles, and we sort of know how it leads to one and another, but maybe for your advice, how should we practice it? Then we know, or maybe how do we know which part we need to practice in that cycle? Should we break feeling, or maybe are we attached to more thoughts, or how should we do it?
Actually this dependent origination, as I mentioned before, is not being separated from the Four Noble Truths, for example. Because, there's the main teachings of the Buddha is the Four Noble Truths. As the Buddha said in one discourse, from earlier, Pubbecahang bhikkhave ettarahija. From earlier until now, Tukhanca Paññāpami Tukasa Nirodhang. I just propose the two teaching, or the two things, that is about dukkha, suffering, and about the cessation of suffering. Only just two things. Pubbecahang bhikkhave ettarahija. Tukhanca Paññāpami Tukasa Nirodha. I propose only two things about the suffering and the cessation of suffering. So that means all the teachings of the Buddha is all about the Four Noble Truths. Of course, when we are talking about the suffering, we also have to understand what is the cause of suffering. When we are talking about the cessation of suffering, we also have to understand what is the cause of ceasing the suffering. That is the Noble Eightfold Path. So therefore, all the teachings of the Buddha should be connected to this. So here, even paticca samuppada which is actually can be used to explain anything in the world. So the Paticcasamuppada can be used to explain, to understand anything in the world. But somehow the Buddha uses this teaching, this nature, only to understand how the suffering arises and how the suffering ceases, because it is connected to the Four Noble Truth. So by understanding that these factors are the causes for suffering, so in the day-to-day life, in practice, in practical way, we have to eliminate these causes. We have to practice in such a way to eliminate these causes. For example, we are talking about avijja, paccaya, sankhara. Because of this avijja, there will be the sankhara, there arises sankhara. So the avijja I mentioned is the non-understanding of the Four Noble Truths. Non-understanding, this is the suffering, this is the cause, like for example the tanha, the craving is the cause of suffering. Non-understanding the cessation of suffering by means of destroying the cause, by means of destroying this tanha, and not understanding the Noble Eightfold Path as the way leading to the cessation of suffering. So because of this non-understanding, and people just do a lot of sankhara. What is sankhara? What is sankhara? Sankhara is the karma. Sankhara is the action. A lot of action are done. What kinds of action? There are three kinds of action, which is actually connected to, I just mentioned about 29 citta. So what are the actions? Apunya bisankhara, demeritorious action, demeritorious deeds. And then punya bisankhara, meritorious deeds. And then aneja bisankhara, that is the action which is connected to the attainments of arupa jhana. Aninja. Aninja from the term aninjati, not injati. That is unshaken. Injati means shaken. An is not shaken. So this is attainments of arupa jhana. Because of not understanding of this avijja, I mean the Four Noble Truth, and then people just do a lot of action. Sometimes doing the bad action, sometimes the good action, sometimes very good action. But somehow all this action brings about the fruit, vipaka, right? The phala, the effects. And because of these actions bring about the vipaka, so there will be the birth. Because we have to experience the vipaka, we have to experience the effects of what we did in the past, so we have to take rebirth in the future. And as long as there is a rebirth, there is a birth, there will be the suffering, right? There will be the suffering. Even though we are living, for example, we are reborn in the heavenly world, but somehow this heavenly world is also impermanence. And sooner or later, we have to go out from this heavenly world, and then we have to live in another world. And sometime we have to reborn. We have to be reborn in kind of lower destination, and this is suffering. So now, in the practical way is how we have to practice in such a way not to do many action. How is it? It doesn't mean that we don't act like giving. If you don't give, and then we as a monk don't get food. Not like that, but something like this. In the practice of vipassana, especially vipassana or insight meditation, actually when we practice this vipassana is the practice in such a way that we see within ourselves, within our minds, not to do any actions. Why in the practice of vipassana we have to see everything as it is? For example, tidak matang bhavisati. In the scene, we have to practice in such a way, this is just merely sin. Not adding with a kind of the reaction, with a kind of there is a I here. There is a I who sees, or there is something self in outside seen by this eye. Just to see everything as it is. Either seen, it is just merely seen, nothing else. So in that very moment, the mind is trained not to being reactive. Just see everything as it is. And because when we react about external object, that itself is actually karma. That itself is action. And as long as there is the action, there will be the fruit. When there is the fruit, there will be the suffering. Right? So therefore, practicing insight meditation is practicing how we don't create any sankhara. Because we understand any kinds of action, all the karma are due to tanha. Because we don't understand that tanha or the craving is the cause of suffering, so we do various kinds of action because of tanha, craving. Of course, sometimes we do the good thing, but somehow it is also craving. We crave to do something. Sometimes we do the good thing, but somehow it is also there, the craving in the action. So the Buddha also mentioned like this one. In order to eradicate suffering or dukkha, one should eradicate karma, action. In order to eradicate action, one should eradicate tanha. So tanha pahana, kamang pahyati. With abandonment of tanha, the craving, there is the abandonment of karma, action. Kamang pahyati, karma or action is being abandoned, destroyed. And then kamang pahana, dukang pahyati. With the abandonment of karma or action, there is the abandonment of dukkha, suffering. So the suffering rises due to the karma rises due to the craving, tanha. So with destructions of tanha, there will be the destructions of craving, the karma. With the abandonment of karma, there will be the abandonment of dukkha, suffering. So tanha, karma, dukkha, right? So the karma is a sankhara. Why people just do this various kind of sankhara or action? Because of tanha, the craving. Why people do various kind of thing out of craving? Because of not understanding that the craving is the cause of suffering. So in the meditation, how we have to practice in such a way to see everything as it is, not to react, not to be judgmental. Of course, we have the judgment, this is right, this is wrong, but somehow the mind is in the state of equanimity, not to be dragged by liking and disliking, by the abhijja domanasa, by the greed and hatred. Because understand that this liking and disliking, this is a reacting mind. That reacting mind is actually the karma, the action, and that action is because of the tanha. So in the practice of insight meditation, we have to become. We practice, we train our mind to become, not to react, not to being dragged by the liking and disliking, because we understand avijja paccaya sankhara. This is one example for that. How this paticca samuppada is not only just theory, not only just a philosophical thing, but that also should be understood in our practice. Especially we have to take this understanding while we are practicing insight meditation with regard to this paticca samuppada. I hope you can understand. Yeah.
Okay, questions?
Yeah.
Bhante, I have a question. If unwholesome thoughts arise in the mind but did not translate to action, is there still sankhara? Is there still karma in that sense? Because I was thinking of the story of Queen Malika, when she had a lustful thought but did not translate to an action, she did not break precepts. Why did she need to suffer? in hell for short term.
Yeah, actually the so-called karma is not only just the verbal actions or bodily action, but even the mental action. So even though it is not coming out through speech and bodily action, even though it is still in the mind, this is also the action. This is a karma. So therefore, like just I mentioned about that sankhara is referring to 29 kinds of citta, that itself still in the mind, not coming out through the speech or the bodily action, but still in the mind. But that itself is also the action, the karma. For example, according to Abhidhamma, there are 8 kinds of citta which are rooted from lobha, greed. Lobha akusala mula. Have you heard that? Yeah, lobha akusala mula. The actions rooted from lobha or the greed, and there are 8 kinds of citta, 8 kinds of consciousness, and those also already action. So the so-called actions are not only just in the bodily or in the verbal, but some are even still in the mind. So that's why, like Ratu Malika, the Queen Malika, during in the death, the last thought of the death, so there arises a kind of nimitta, a kind of sign what she has already done before, previous, that it becomes the the cause why she was reborn even in the hell at that time, even though only just 1 week, accordingly just 1 week, because Queen Malika was a very very good person, very faithful person to the Buddha, but somehow because of one mistake, and then that becomes a cause for her to be reborn in the hell for 1 week, and after that, and then she was reborn as a deity. So the so-called karma or the action, not only just bodily and also the verbal, but also the mental action. So there is a vaci karma, that is the verbal action, and then also kaya karma, the bodily action, and also the mano karma. Mano karma is the mental action. So even though it is just still in the mind, that itself is the action. That is as karma. So we have to be careful about any kinds of action, even though it is just in the mind. We have to be very careful. And even that's the so-called action becoming small or big action, it is also due to our mind. How far our intentions within our minds doing that. When our intentions are very bad, for example, like this, there is one story about the Chula Pandaka. No, not Chula Pandaka. Another one is the monk who actually blinds. Remember? The monk was actually at the time practicing meditation, and somehow he become blind, and then he attained arahantship. And after that, he was just walking around, and many insects died because of he was walking. Not Chula Pandaka, another one. Yeah. And at that time, some other monk was complaining to the Buddha, and this monk was, walking around, and then many insects died. But then the Buddha said that this monk did not have any intention. He didn't have any intentions to kill that insects. Moreover, this monk was actually arahant. It is impossible to have intentions to kill, to harm others. So the intention is very important. Another story is also there is one monk who actually at the time when he was going for alms, and then together with other monks, and then he just pushed another monk. And he pushed another monk with the thought at the time just to make him go faster. But then that monk was falling down and died. And then he was very feeling guilty. He went to the Buddha and told the matter. And the Buddha said, whether you have the intention to to make him die. No, Bhante, I didn't have any intention. I just pushed him in order to go faster. But somehow he just fell down and died. So if you don't have any intention, so you are not guilty. You are not doing mistake. You are not having the offense. You don't kill that person because you don't have any intention. So this intention within the mind is also very important to decide whether this action is bad or good, whether this action is great or small. But another time, there is one monk teaching about the marana, about the death, marana nusati, the contemplations of death. But somehow he has the intention, because at the time there is one person, one upasaka, who was already very old, and then he was talking about the marana, about the death, but the intentions in order to make him died. And it happened when he was teaching about this marana nusati, about the contemplation on death, which is actually very good. You know, we had to contemplate about the death. But somehow, with the intention, that person died because of that teaching, because listening to the teaching on death. And that happened. That person died. And later on, he was feeling very guilty. And then he went to the Buddha and then told the matter. And the Buddha said, whether you have the intention. Yes, Bhante, I had the intention. Oh, you killed that person. You have to disrobe. Because the monk who killed another human being should disrobe. Should, not become monk in this very life. Yes, you have to disrobe. So that intention is very important. So that intention itself is actually the action. So therefore the Buddha said, Cetanahang bhikkhave kamang vadabi. O monks, I say that cetana, the intention, is what it is called as karma. So the so-called karma or action is actually our intention. So only just having the intention itself, only intention alone, it is already karma. And let alone and then going to the speech, manifesting into the speech or bodily action, all these are karma. But intention is the main reason. Whether the karma, the action, is bad or good, small or big. So we have to understand that. Yeah, please.
To you.
Bhante, good morning. Thanks for sharing. On this intention, do you mind to elaborate a bit? How does the intention comes about? Does it comes from the feelings, our consciousness, that kind of thing? Yeah, thanks.
Cetana, intention. Actually, the cetana is one of the sankhara. So you know that we as the human beings is composed of 5 aggregates. This body, or the material, this body, the bodily aggregate, the material aggregate, or rupa khandha, and then the second vedana khandha, the aggregates of feeling, the pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral feeling, and then the aggregates of perception. So the state of mind which perceive the object, that is perception. Like for example, you see me now. By means of the mental images, the mind sees the object. By means of the mental images, by means of the picture, by means of the sign, that is the sanya. All what we see through our eyes, this is the sanya. This is perception. When you listen the sound and then you recognize the sound, you have the sign of the sound, you have the picture of the sound, you have the picture of the sound. Did you see the picture when you were listening to the sound? No? Really? Now you can listen, for example, there is the sound of the motorcycle. Can you see the motorcycle in your mind? It must be. Otherwise you cannot say this is motorcycle. Right? These are also perception. Or you can just close your eyes and then you just think of the like forest, Can you see the picture of the forest? Can you see? Like the green color, and then there is stone, there is a tiger, like that. You can see the picture of the forest. This is perception. So the mind recognizing the object through the sign, through the picture, the mental images. These are the perception, sanya kanda. And the fourth one is sankara, the aggregate of sankara. Sankara is the formation, mental formation. Various kinds of mental formation, bad and good. We are talking about lobha, dosa, moha, the greed, hatred, delusion. We are talking about alobha, adosa, moha, non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. We are talking about mindfulness, sati, sampajana, mindfulness, and then the understanding or the wisdom, paññā or sampajana, including cetana, the thought, the intention. So this intention belonging to the sankara, not feeling, not vedana, not sanya, but belongs to sankara, the mental formation, the intention. And also the last one is vijnana, the consciousness. The consciousness is the state of mind which knows the whole experience. That is consciousness. And it follows the whole time. The whole time of the process of mind, this consciousness following there. But of course, it also is the state of rising and falling, not like stable consciousness, not like a permanent consciousness, but that rises and falls depending on sankara, vedana, and sanya, and also even depending on rupa. So when the sankara, vedana, sanya, rupa change, the consciousness also changes. So that consciousness of vijnana, or the state of mind which knows the object, is actually in the state of changing depending on the object. What is the object? The object is the sankara, including cetana, including the vedana, sanya, and also the rupa. These are the object of vijnana. And now this sankara, one of the sankara is cetana, the intention. Intention is one of the sankara. So in Abhidhamma, there are 52 cetasika, mental concomitants. You see that? There are citta, cetasika, and rupa. So the rupa is the rupa khandha, the same, right? There are 28, or we can say there are 4, the 4 great elements of the rupa. The earth elements, and then again what? Air elements, water elements, and fire element, the 4 great elements. And together with others, Upajjhaya Rupa, there are 28 of rupa. But then, cetasika, mental concomitant, there are 52 mental concomitants. There are 2 mental concomitants which are actually referring to vedana and sanya. The 2 one. One is a vedana, another one is sanya. Vedana is the feeling, sanya is perception. There are 2. And the remaining 50 belonging to sankara. So the cetana belongs to sankara. Especially mano sancetana, the mental intention, belong to sankara. Not vedana, not sanya. But we also have to remember whether when there is cetana or intention, there will be no vedana and sanya, and also no any consciousness. Cannot say so. That means when there is cetana, there must be there the vedana. There must be there the sanya. And there must be there the vijnana. The 4 aggregates must be there. What is the reason? Because even the vedana and sanya The feeling and perception will arise in all kinds of consciousness, will arise in all kinds of citta. There are 89 citta. So this Vedana and Sanya will arise in 89 citta. So when this Cetana belonging to Cetasika arises, there must be the Vedana, the feeling, there must be the Sanya, perception, and there must be consciousness. Otherwise, no any Cetana without consciousness, without feeling, without perception. Impossible. Yeah.
All right. More questions? We still have about 20 minutes for questions. No more questions? Oh.
Thank you, Bhante, for the teachings. I would like to ask more about, can Bhante tell us more about you tell about the 3 actions that we have to avoid, right? The unwholesome, wholesome, and one is arupa vachara, is it? Yeah, can you tell us more about this?
Yeah. Actually, somehow some other action we should develop. But some we have to understand all those actions are actually out of, the avidya. But somehow we also have, we have to develop, we have to even act in some other action. So these 3 kinds of actions, one is the apunya pisankara. This apunya is demeritorious deeds, and this apunya, in connection to 89 citta in Abhidhamma, so these apunyas are the actions belonging to 12 kinds of citta. 12 kinds of citta. So these 12 kinds of cittas are rooted from lobha, dosa, and moha, from the greed, hatred, and delusion. So when we are doing something action, whether from the speech or from the bodily action, even within the minds, rooted from lobha, greed, or hatred, or delusion, those are the bad action. And these bad action manifest into 10 kinds of action. This bad action, which is called as dasa akusala kamapata, the 10 source of bad action or unwholesome action. Akusala kama, unwholesome action. One is a killing. So whatever reason people kill others, that is a bad action. It can arise due to the lobha, dosa, or moha. But mostly it is stated that when the person is killing, in the times of killing, there must be the dosa or hatred. But before that, one perhaps kills others because of lobha, greed. And of course, in the greed and also in the hatred, there will be moha. So the moha, the delusion, the non-understanding will be in all kinds of bad or unwholesome action. So when we are doing something bad out of greed, but somehow inside that there will be the moha. When we are doing something out of hatred, inside there will be the moha. So the moha will arise in every kinds of citta, which is unwholesome citta. So the first killing, the second stealing, the third one is doing sexual misconduct. This is the 3 kinds of action done by the bodily actions. And another 4 is about the verbal action, verbal unwholesome action. The first is telling lie, and the second one is speaking which is unbeneficial, and the third one telling something which is harsh, hurting others, and the fourth one is telling something which brings about, disharmony. Yes, correct, disharmony. The 4 kinds of unwholesome verbal action out of lobha, dosa, and moha. And the three others, actually the action done by the mind. That is the greed. The first is greed or abhijja. And the second, the hatred, vyapada. And the third one, having false view or the unright view, the false view, the bad view. So this is a mithya-ditti. So there are 10 kinds of action based on lobha, dosa and moha, and those actions considered to be demeritorious action, or it is apunya visangara. So we have to be careful about this. You know, we have to remember. We have to memorize this 10 action. So whatever the reason when we are doing this 10 action, that means we are doing apunya visangara. And another one is the punya visangara. What is a punya visangara? That is the action which is meritorious deed. That meritorious deeds, including the 8 mahakusala and the 5 rupavachara, the 5 jhana. So 8 plus 5, there will be 13, right? 13 plus 12, there will be 25. Okay. So the 12 actions are rooted from lobha, dosa, moha. That is demeritorious deeds, manifesting into 10 kinds of action. And then the 13 actions, 8 from the mahakusala, the good action, like we are refraining from the killing, refraining from the stealing, refraining from doing sexual misconduct, refraining from all kinds of, unwholesome verbal action. So we also have, like a nikkama, kind of renunciation thought. We also have the loving kindness as the opposite of there's hatred, and we also have the right view or samadhi as opposite as with the false view, like that. So this is the mahakusala. So we have to performing action which is actually based on alobha, adosa, moha, and that is mahakusala, the 8 mahakusala. And also we have to practice in such a way meditation to attain especially the rupavachara, rupa jhana. In Abhidhamma there are 5 jhana. Of course quite different from sutta, where the sutta is actually mentioning about 4 jhana, 4 rupa jhana, but some in Abhidhamma there are 5 rupa jhana. So 8 plus 5, 13. So these 13 actions considered to be punya visangara, meritorious deed. While the last one, the 4 action considered to be aneja visangara. Aneja means unshaken, something action which is connected to unshaken mind. That refers to arupa jhana, the developments of arupa jhana. So in the arupa jhana, whether in sutta or in Abhidhamma, there will be the 4 arupa jhana. Akasan chanayatana, the based on, the unlimited space, akasan chanayatana, vinyanan chanayatana, the base of unlimited consciousness, vinyanan chanayatana, and then akin chanayatana, the base on nothingness, akinchana. Kinchi means something, akinchi means no anything, so that is nothingness. And then neva sanyana sanyatana, the base on neither perception nor non-perception. That is neva sanyana sanyatana, the 4. The 4 meditative attainments referring to arupa jhana are considered to be aneja visangara. So when we are practicing, developing these attainments, that is arupa jhana, all these are considered to be aneja visangara. But somehow, all these actions are due to tanha, craving. As long as we don't understand the Four Noble Truths, as long as we don't understand this paticca samuppada, all these actions are due to this tanha. But now, when we understand this dependent origination, we understand especially the Four Noble Truths, of course we have to practice. we have to, we have to act in day-to-day life with a wholesome state, with a wholesome action. We have to develop the Mahakusala. We have to, abandoning the Akusala Karma based on greed, hatred, and delusion, but somehow we have to spend our life with Mahakusala. And we also have to develop, like, Rupajhana, Arupajhana. That is a good thing. That is also being encouraged by the Buddha, that we, as the disciple, need to develop this meditation, this meditative attainments. And that is a good thing. And that is also helpful when we are practicing, when we are developing our mind in accordance, in line to the Dhamma. So this Mahakusala, this Rupa Arupajhana is also very helpful. So that is the good thing. But somehow in the meantime, you also have to understand Tanha. Tanha in anything, in any action, is the cause of suffering. You practice Mahakusala. You do the good thing. For example, you practice the giving. Before we understanding this Paticca Samuppada, perhaps we practice the giving. But somehow that giving is out of Tanha, craving. I have to give something to others in order to be reborn in the heaven. Right? So this wishing to be reborn in the heaven, even though it is better than you want to be reborn in the hell. Right? It is better you have the wish to be reborn in the heaven, but somehow it is also out of craving, out of Tanha. But the Buddha then said that there is one motivation, one intention which is praisable, which is being encouraged by the Buddha, that one should give something to others, one should practice the giving for the sake of beautifying the mind. Citta Lankara, Citta Parikara, just for the sake of eliminating defilements of mind. So that kind of the practice is the best practice because of understanding that craving is actually the cause of suffering. So when we practice the giving, when we practice the dana, this is only just for the sake of eliminating defilements of mind. And that is different thing. And likewise, when we are practicing the sila, the morality, so the morality can be out of the craving. I practice the morality. I have to preserve my morality. I have to, protect my morality, because by doing so, and then I can be reborn in the heaven. I can be reborn in the Brahma world, and that is a craving. But somehow the Buddha mentioned that even this morality is being preserved, is being protected. We have to practice on morality just for the sake of nibbana, just for the sake of eliminating the defilements of mind. Recently, one person asking me about what is the reason why we as a Buddhist, every Uposatha has to practice the 8th precept. One of the precepts is not taking meal after midday, or vikala bhujana viramani. So refraining taking meal after midday on the wrong times. And what is the reason? So we have to, coming back to the teachings of the Buddha, the reason is only just because to eliminate the defilements of mind. Because one day, the Buddha told to his disciple that you have to practice in such a way not to take meal after midday. And it is good if you just eat once a day. And because of that, and then I myself become healthy because I eat just once a day. I don't eat after midday. I become healthy. So you also have to do that. And by doing so, you also become healthy. And some other monks, that is actually Cakbagya, the two groups among the 6 groups of the monks named Cakbagya, told to others, I eat in the night, I eat after midday, and I'm also healthy. So what is the difference? What is the difference between eating before midday and eating after midday? I'm so healthy like you. So what is the difference? And that has been told to the Buddha, and the Buddha mentions about the feeling. There are some feelings When that feeling rises and the defilements of mind increases, even though it is a pleasant feeling, that should be destroyed. When that feeling is actually unpleasant, even it is unpleasant feeling, but when that unpleasant feeling arises, the defilements of mind is being, destroyed, or somehow little by little is weakening. That unpleasant feeling is worthy to be developed. And now we trigger to the eating. We are practicing, like you in the Uposatha, practicing not to eat after midday. That is about the feeling. Because there are some feeling, even pleasant feeling, when it is increasing, due to that pleasant feeling, the defilements of mind increases. When you eat as you like, you like to eat in the morning, in the daytime, in the night, like 5 times a day. The most important, I like. But you have to remember, within that, there is defilements of mind. There is the greed. So in this practice of Uposatha itself, the morality is just for the sake of eliminating the defilements of mind, not just refraining. Because if only just refraining, those people who cannot eat, that means practicing Uposatha. So not like that. But those who are practicing Uposatha, practicing the 8 precepts, because understand, these are for the purpose of purifying the mind, for the purpose of eliminating defilements of mind. That is the reason. Because understand that this tanha is the cause of suffering. The craving is the cause of suffering. And there are 4 kinds of food which brings about the survival of beings, which bring about beings wandering in the cycles of birth and death. One of the food is kabalingkara ahara, the solid food, what we eat every day, fried chicken, rice, that is kabalingkara ahara. So this kabalingkara ahara is the cause why we are always in these cycles of life, in the samsaric life. But somehow, what we have to eliminate is not the kabalingkara ahara, the reason why we always seek this kabalingkara ahara, the reason why we always find this food, the reason is because tanha, the craving. So this is what we have to destroy, the craving. So practicing the morality, not eating after midday, is to destroy, to at least little by little. So in Pali it is called tokang, little by little, eliminating the craving. Because we understand craving is the cause of suffering. Craving is avijja. Because of avijja, people doing a lot of things, acting a lot of things, karma. So this is the reason. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Going once, twice.
I hope it becomes interactive, because if I just explaining, I think just explain only half an hour, we'll be finished.
Okay, then in this case, I think we can end a bit early. Bhante can rest a little bit before the lunch dana.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe we all just pay respect to Bhante before Bhante leave the hall. Yeah, it's about 3 times.
Okay, thank you very much. May all of you get happiness and growth in the Dhamma.